An Anti-Psychiatry-Mental Patient Activist Rights Guide. Chapter 1. Help without Psychobabble 1. Can you recover from mental illness websites? The conventional wisdom is that you can recover from mental illness with hope and love. There is also some talk about brain scans being used to predict whether people can recover from mental illness. abc.net.au/news/news item/200609/S1737523.htm 1stpm.org, First Person Mental Health Magazine. AdultRecoveryNetwork.org. akmhcweb.org/recovery/rec.htm. apahelpcenter.org. akmhcweb.org/recovery/recovery responsi by lights roadblocks.pdf. People can recover from serious mental illness. camh.net/about_mental_health/mental_health_information/depressive_illness/DEP_illness_relapse.html. crrg-gcrr.ca/article/stainer.pps, recovery, in serious mental illness. geometricvisions.com/madness. gileadcs.org/facts_myths.html, facts and myths about mental illness. healthinsight.gov.au/topics/recovering_from_mental_illness. he's-inc.org/res/recovery from sir.iosme.pdf. Illness. insidezyprexa.com/pdf/04_recovering.pdf. jeffersonmentalhealth.org/program/recovery/recovery.cfm. lily.com/products/conditions/schizophrenia/ntt_04_recovering.pdf. mentalhealth.samhsa.gov/cmhs. mentalhealthcommission.gov. mentalhealthrecovery.com. mhowestchester.org/diagnoseadult/millness.asp. mhcd.org, Mental Health Corporation of Denver. nami.org/content/navigation menu/find_support/consumer_support/recovery.htm, recover from mental illness. naminh.org, National Alliance on Mental Illness NH. namicc.org/recovery. NewYorkCityVoices.org, a consumer journal for mental health advocacy. peersupport.org/recover.htm. penumbra.org.uk/expect_main.htm, people can and do recover from mental illness. peersupport.org/recover.htm. healyourmind.org.uk. treatmentteam.com. power2u.org/article/recovery/people_can.html. procovery.com. recovery.bz, services for people who are recovering from serious mental illness. recovery-inc.com, support group for mental patients. rethink.org. rethink.org/living_with_mental_illness. rise.org, employability project, assists people recovering from serious mental illness. seekwellness.com/conditions/mental. selfhelpweb.org. shorep.umdenge.edu/sme, Center for the Study and Promotion of Recovery from Severe Mental. state.sc.us/dmh/erasing_stigma.htm, erasing the stigma of mental illness. stigmaof.com, stigma of mental illness. ti-gr.com, Touchstone Innovare helps people recover from serious mental illness. tomrogerswebdesign.com/nec/people_can7.27.05.htm. whatadifference.samhsa.gov. goclubhouse.org, the Gainesville Opportunity Center is dedicated to the recovery and betterment of the lives of people with a mental illness. iclink.net/recovery.html, Institute for Mental Health Consumer Survivor websites. A lot of mental health patients in a lot of countries, even though they do not pose a risk of committing violence against others, are locked up in prisons or mental illness wards at hospitals. Interrelate. Interrelate.info. Coalition of Mental Health Consumers/Survivor Organizations. Mindfreedom.org. patientadvocate.org/resources.php?p=sign psilliance.org/site/.page name=help_advocate_mental_health. who.in/mental_health/resources/n/advocate.pdf. aacap.org/publications/fax/fam/74.htm, advocacy, ASAP Facts for Families brochure number 74. acmiindia.com/ac/advocate-in-action. apa.org/ppo/pippo.html, public interest advocacy. Here you can learn more about APA's advocacy to support and promote efforts to apply the science and profession of psychology to the advancement of human welfare. apa.org/ppo/ppan, get involved in advocacy, how to advocate for psychology from the APA Public Policy Office. assisted-outpatient-treatment.org/myth/mental-health-bar.html. ccpgh.com/index.php/psychiatry-in-pittsburgh/patient-education-portal. co.san-joaquin.ca.us/mhs/psychiatric-facility/patient-rights.htm. cqc.ny.gov/advocate/protection-advocate-program/PIME, the protection and advocacy for individuals with mental illness. psilliance.org/site/.page name=help_advocate_mental_health. dmhc.ca.gov/dmhc_consumer/br/mental-HLTH.aspx. drckansas.org/publications/the-rights-of-persons-with-mental-illness-1. dsh.ca.gov/publications/patients_rights/docs/rights-handbook. dsh.ca.gov/publications/patients_rights/docs/rights-handbook. edgeofmycloud.wordpress.com/2012/08/16/mental-health-human-rights-for-the-patient. ehow.com, mental health policy and advocacy for patients' rights. emergingfrombroken.com. en.wikipedia.org/wiki/psychiatric_survivors_movement. hallnewjersey.org/index.php/for-one-urban-civil-health-and-the-nation-the-history-continued-struggle-for-the-mental-health-civil-rights-civil-rights-civil-vic-mental-health-civil-rights-mental-health-patient-rights. healthyplace.com/other-info/psychiatric-definition/mental-health-bill-of-rights. hhs.gov, patient advocates and mental health services. huffingtonpost.com, dying with your rights on mental illness. kqed.org/w/hope/patientrights.html. lawfoundation.org/mhap.asp. legalaid.vic.gov.au/find-legal-answers/mental-health-and-your-rights. library.uc.edu/departem/hnet/advocate.html. listentourstories.com/resources-links.htm. mentalhealthamerica.net. mentalhealthamerica.net. mentalhealthamerica.net/policy-advocate. mentalhealthrecovery.com/rap/documents/improving PR opens ITY for patient self-advocate.pdf. mentalillnesspolicy.org/myth/mental-health-bar.pdf. mhaac.org, mhas.wa.gov.au, mhas-law.org, mhpa.ab.ca, Alberta Mental Health Patient Advocate, mhrm.mhcc.org.au, mhrm.mhcc.org.au, The Mental Health Rights Manual, mind.org.uk/mental_health_a040_advocacy_in_mental_health, NAMI.org, patients_rights_advocate, NAMIOhio.org/mental_health_advocacy/what_is_advo_page, NAMI-Sacramento.org/resources/patients-rights.html, NAMI-Sacramento.org/resources/patients-rights.html, Mental illness, NARPA.org, omh.ny.gov/consumer_affairs/resources/advocaki.html, outsidethebeltway.com/mental-illness-the-law-and-individual-rights, patient advocacy resources especially those relating to mental health issues, patientadvocate.org, power2u.org/article/history-project/x-patients.html, psychcentral.com/resources/mental_health/advocaki_and_policy, psychiatrictimes.com/p971146b.html, the SOS campaign, educating the public, psychiatrictimes.com/p971155.html, a psychiatrist's journey from parent to founder of research advocacy organization, psychiatrictimes.com/p971156.html, the web as resource for patient advocacy groups, psychiatrictimes.com/p971201.html, criminal charges filed in recovered memory case, psychiatrictimes.com/p971229b.html, media advocacy promotes freedom to speak out, psychiatrictimes.com/p980201.html, patient dumping mentally ill get shortchanged, psychiatrictimes.com/p980739.html, debate over outpatient commitment, involuntary care, psychiatrictimes.com/p980767.html, Women Healing Conference examines women in recovery, rickcross.com/reference/psychology/psychiatry/psychiatry13.html, risperdialcon.sda.com/patient-resources/patient-advocaki-organizations, sfgate.com/health/article/patients-rights-vs-public-safety-virginia-2600596.php, store.samhsa.gov, PAMI program, team-mn.com/patientadvocaki, therecord.com/news/local/article/566551, advocates warn rights of mental health patients at risk, tulare-hsa.org/index.cfm/mental-health/beneficiary-health-mental-health-family-advocate, va.gov/health/patient-advocate, webmd.com/schizophrenia/guide/rights-mental-illness, who.in/mental_health/policy/legislation/n, mental health, human rights, who.in/mental_health/resources/n/advocaki.pdf, wisegeek.com/what-is-a-mental-health-advocate.htm, wsh.dmhmrssas.virginia.gov/patient-rights.htm, mental health chat/self-help chat/mental illness chat/mental health support groups, psychnet-uk.com/x_new_site/mental-health-chat room/mental-health-chat rooms.html, groups.psychologytoday.com, bchouseeast.org/bchsurf/mh/mhsup, cdc.gov/mental health, cdh.org/medical-services/services-a-health/support-health-groups.aspx, cmha.ca/programs-and-services/support-groups, cnn.com/health/library/support-groups/mh00044.html, cocaf.org/mental_groups, communitybible.com/get-involved/groups, dailystrength.org, dailystrength.org/support-groups/children's-mental-health, dailystrength.org/support-groups/mental-health-addiction, dbhds.virginia.gov/omh-support-groups.htm, efacitofacehealth.com/mental-health-support-support-groups, findthelight.net, groups.google.com, healthpoint.co.nz/useful-information/support-groups-1/mental-health-support-groups, healthyplace.com, inspire.com/categories/mental-health, inspire.com/groups/mental-health-America, kitsapmentalhealth.org/support_groups.aspx, lehighcounty.org/departments/human-services/mental-health/resources/support-groups/tabd, maplewoodcounseling.com, mayoclinic.com/health/support-groups/mh00002, mdjunction.com/mental-health, mdjunction.com/support-groups/mental-health, meetup.com, meetup.com/mental-health-matters-support-group, mentalhealth.asn.au/find-support/anxiety-support-groups.html, mental-health.meetup.com, mentalhealth.org.au, mental-health.supportgroups.com, mentalhealthforkids.org/support-groups, mentalhealthamerica.net, mentalhealthamerica.net/go/find_support_group, mentalhealthanswers.org, mentalhealthcounseling.org/mental-health-support-support-groups, mentalhealthgracealliance.org, mentalhealthgracealliance.org/mental-health-support-groups-grace-groups, mentalhealthmn.org, mental-health-peer-support.meetup.com, mentalhealthpro.meetup.com, mentalhealthrecovery-advice.com/benefits-of-mental-health-support-groups, mentalhealthsf.org/help-now/support-groups-self-help, mentalhealthsimplified.com/support-groups-details.aspx, mental-health-support.meetup.com, mental-health-support.meetup.com/cities/us/New York/new_York, mentalhelp.net/self-help, mentalill.meetup.com, mha.avenue.org/supportgroups.php, mhac.org/help/support_groups.cfm, mhac.org/state-wide-support-groups.asp, mhcv.org/resources/support_groups.htm, mhafc.org/support_groups.php, mhafc.org/supportgroups.htm, mhag.org/find_a_support_group.cfm, mhag.org/find-a-self-help-group.cfm, mhi.net/groups.htm, mhinulster.com/education-advocate/support-groups, mhajax.org/support-groups.html, mhand.org/index.php/support-groups.html, mhasuffolk.org/documents/support-groups.php, mhaswo.org/support.asp, mhat.org/get-help/support-groups, mhavanderburg.org/support_groups.htm, mhawisconsin.org/support-groups-search.aspx, mhcohio.org/support-groups.html, mhpss.net/groups, mhweb.org, nami.org, namihelps.org/support.html, namizef.org, namiswpa.org/content/find_support/support_groups.php, nmha.org/go/help/find-help/find-treatment/find-support-groups, psychcentral.com/resources/mental_health/support_groups, psychcentral.com/resources/mental_health/support_groups/more2.html, qualityhealth.com/anxiety-mental-health-support-group, qualityhealth.com/support-groups, rbha.org/adult-recovery-support.htm, regionalmentalhealth.org/r_support-groups.php, samhsa.gov/data/2k9/161/161 mhsupportgroup.htm, starkmhrsb.org/site/pages/paganame=consumers_support-groups, summitcares.org/?mental_health_support-groups, supportforhope.com, supportforgroups.org.uk, supportgroups.com, supportmentalhealth.com, wcmha.org/prov_dir/support_groups.htm, webmd.com/anxiety-panic/guide/mental-health-group-therapy, mental health peer websites. A mental health peer could be a patient or former patient assigned to another patient informally to help as a friend, or he/she could be a person who took some mental health courses, got a certification and now acts as a friend and helper for a mental health patient. mentalhealthhelper.com, amistadinc.org, aodia.org/practitioners/practice areas/emerging areas/mh/recovery.aspx, bhwellness.org/initiative/peer-to-peer, camentalhealth.net, camhpro.org, dbhids.org/peer-support, dbsalliance.org, dshs.wa.gov/dbhr/mhoper.shtml, en.wikipedia.org/wiki/peer_support, en.wikipedia.org/wiki/peer_support_specialist, ezenarticles.com/?peer-mentoring-and-mental-health-recovery, facebook.com/pages/mental-health-peer-connection, meetup.com/mental-health-peer-support-organization, mentalhealth.gov/talk/community-conversation, mentalhealth.org.uk/help-information/mental-health-a-z/p/peer-support, mentalhealthadvocacy-peer-support.org, mentalhealthamerica.net, mentalhealthhoper.com, mentalhealthhopers.com, mentalhealthportland.org/?tag=peer, mentalhealthrecovery.com, mentalwellnessnetwork.org/peers, mhag.org/peer-support.cfm, mhpcolorado.org/services/peer-support-services.aspx, mhrecovery.org, mhsinc.org/jobs/peer-specialist, mhsinc.org/peer-to-peer, nami.org, nami.org/template.cfm?section=peer-to-peer, namiohio.org/mental_health_support/peer_to_peer, nmha.org, oregon.gov/oha/am/pages/peer.aspx, parecovery.org/documents/pillars_of_peer_support.pdf, parecovery.org/services_peer.shtml, peersnet.org, recoverywithinreach.org/peer support centers, samhsa.gov, theodivio-kaki-alliance.org/programs-and-services/community-mental-health-peer-to-peer-services, tn.gov/mental/recovery/oca3.shtml, und.edu/health-wellness/peer-educators/mental-health/info.cfm, vacareers.va.gov/peer-to-peer/index.asp, wabi.org/post/center-focuses-mental-health-recovery-through-peer-support, wnyil.org/mhpc. Chapter 2. Help Without Psychobabble 2. Find alternative counselors and peer support at mindfreedom.org/resources. They don't believe in mental health drugs. They believe in being real human beings. Deal with someone one-on-one. Don't just put them in some stupid category then give them drugs and have therapy talking about the past in order to make money, not because you really care about the person. Cases in point of famous people duped are Brian Wilson, Margaret Trudeau, and Roseanne Barr. 454 Willamette, Suite 216. Eugene, Oregon, 97440-3484 USA. Phone/fax. 541-345-9106. Office at mindfreedom.org. mindfreedom.org/resources. Mental health myths. The so-called mental health industry is trying to legitimize itself, so most of the myths are that mental health patients aren't crazy or weak. They're normal people like you and me with a little illness that they can fix with drugs and therapy. I see it as more of the attempt to try to make mental illness a common part of mainstream life, which I see as big business, since I think that just about all mental illnesses are either fake or the result of weakness, except for the few that are caused by bona fide organic brain disorders. dmh.chahwnet.gov/pay statewide projects/docs/myths-and-facts-mentalhealth.pdf, healthandfitness.simpatico.ms/.ca/mental+health+myths, mentalhealthshop.org/products/mhm_products/myths_about.html, mhagstl.org/myths.htm, St. Louis, mymentalhealth.ca, nostigma.org/myths.php, promoteacceptance.samhsa.gov/publications/myths_facts.aspx, psychcentral.com/archive/top_myths.htm, wimentalhealth.org/combatingtigma/myths, Wisconsin United for Mental Health. Mental health stories. People talk about their mental health issues. abc.net.au/rn/science/mind/s55647.0.htm, personal stories, mental illness, and the medical profession. akmhcweb.org/recovery/rec.htm, allmentalhealth.samhsa.gov/mystery.html, bbc.co.uk/health/conditions/addiction/stories_index.shtml, divinecaroline.com/browse/body_and_soul/illness/mental_illness, dual-diagnosis-treatment-center.com/personal.html, en.wikipedia.org/wiki/mental_illness_in_fiction, ga.berkeley.edu/mentalhealth/stories.html, healthboards.com, healthcareanswers.net/personal_stories.html, healthyminds.org/personalstories.cfm, college mental health stories. healthyplace.com. medscape.com/medlany/abstract/157777366, people never see us living well, an appraisal of the personal stories about mental illness in a prospective print media sample. mentalhealth.com, personal stories. mentalhealth.org.uk/information/have-your-say/personal-stories. mentalhealthamerica.net. mentalhealthamerica.net/go/action/share-your-story. mentalhealthassociation.com. mentalhealthcare.org.uk/carers stories. mentalhealthchannel.net. mentalhealthshortstories.com. mental-health-today.com/ptsd/domestic/stories.htm, domestic violence stories. mentaljokes.com. mhc.government.nz/speeches-media/gift-stories.html. namicc.org/freshair.htm. namicc.org/mentalhealth.htm. samhsa.gov/mentalhealth/understanding_mentalness.aspx. samhsa.gov/mentalhealth/understanding_mentalness_facts/het.aspx. society.go/rt.com/issues/health/mental-health/personal-stories.html. sdjohnsdsm.org/feedback/respondme.php. webmd.com/mental-health/features/default.htm. whatadifference.org, what a difference a friend makes. world-schizophrenia.org/stories. zoo.pwp.blueyonder.co.uk. Mental illness dating websites. I couldn't find more than a few mental health dating websites. You might do better looking for chat rooms on mental health websites that deal with your mental illness. No longer lonely.com, dating experience designed exclusively for adults with serious mental illness. Membership is reserved solely for those with a diagnosis of schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression, obsessive-compulsive disorder, anxiety, personality disorder, or eating disorder. anxiety-and-social-phobias.meetup.com. chemicalpulse.com/index.php !page=mentally_ill_dating. christian-dating-guide.com. consciousdating.blogspot.com. conscioussingles.com. easydatingusa.com/mental-ill-dating. easyarticles.com/question-online-dating-for-the-mentally-ill&ID =116175. forums.plentyoffish.com. friendshipnetwork.org. getpotted.com/forum. getting-together.org.uk. justscihi.com/interest/mental-health, mental health professionals. maybefriends.com. mentalhelp.net. okcupid.com/test/the-mental-illness-quiz. psychcentral.com/resources/relationships/online_dating. psychologytoday.com/blog/the-love-doctor. social.realmentalhealth.com. trueacceptance.com. wispi.com/disabled-dating-specialsingly.html. Chapter 3. An Anti-Mental Health Psychology Website Guide. Anti-Mental Health Psychiatry Websites 1. Book called Bedlam, Greed, Profiteering and Fraud in a Mental Health System Gone Crazy by Joe Sharkey. Books about toxic psychiatry are at #616.891 or RC341 at the library. StopBadTherapy.com. mental-health-abuse.org. medium.com/the-mission/the-help-gurus-selling-u-crap-70D0639ad747. kappa.was.utoronto.ca, Coalition Against Psychiatric Assault, an organization that is focused on strategic activism. Metafilter.com/25735/Americas-Psychosis. Medscape.com/Medlany/abstract/156055757, How I Quit Being a Mental Patient and Became a Whole Person with a Neurochemical Imbalance. Anti-Mental Health Psychiatry websites too. Anti-Psychiatry.org. cchr.org/index.cfm/7095, Citizens Commission on Human Rights, Why is Scientology Opposed to Psychiatry? bjp.rc/content/full/190/2/184, Recovery Beyond Psychiatry. aapsonline.org/newsletters/apr05.htm. health.groups.yahoo.com/group/recovering from psychiatry. akmhcweb.org/recovery/rec.htm, Recovery from Mental Illness, Psychiatry's Unholy Trinity, Fraud, Fear, and Force. en.wikipedia.org/wiki/anti-psychiatry. en.wikipedia.org/wiki/the_myth_of_mental_illness, a controversial book by Thomas Zess. Psychrights.org. alternativementalhealth.com. Anti-Psychiatry.org. authorhouse.com/bookstore/item detail book ID 34724.aspx, The Conspiracy, Fraud, Quackery and Death of Psychiatry. brijijin.com/brbbooks.html. cchr.org, Citizens Commission on Human Rights. cpdme.org, Coalition for Persons Disabled by Mental Illness, North Carolina. chris.com/shoulddemon/antipsych.html. critsynet.freeuk.com. dietsforme.com/ad/64/psychotherapy-quackery.html. ect.org, Shock Treatments. en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Douglas_C._Smith. forum.com/health/toxic_psychiatry_quotes_enjoy_52872.3.html. freedom-center.org/info/use-drugs-wisely.html, Northampton, Ma., 413-582-9948. freedommag.org. harborside.com/home/e/equinox/welcome.htm, Survivor of Psychiatry. hillel.com/holistic_psychology/toxic_psychiatry.html. human-nature.com/odmh/anti.html. humanrightsfreedom.org/mental.htm. keersey.com/toxic.html. lalva.cc/choice/choice.html. maxrax.com/castillo/bookstore.html, 800-435-7453, book The Myth of Psychology by Fred Newman. mental-health-abuse.org/psychhoax1.html. mindfreedom.org. mindfreedom.org/mad-market/toxic psychiatry. oecos.org/mosier.htm, The Dark Side of Psychiatry. oism.info/n/resources/books. pressgang.bc.ca, book Call Me Crazy, Stories from the Mad Movement by Irit Shimrod. psychrights.org. sntp.net/ect/ect3.htm, ECT, Electroconvulsive Shock Treatment. stopshrinks.org. transactionpub.com, 888-999-6778, book A Lexicon of Lunacy, Metaphoric Malady, Moral Responsibility and Psychiatry by Thomas Zess. whale.to/psychiatry_h.html. wildestcolts.com, The Wildest Colts Make the Best Horses, a legislative success tale, changing child psychiatry policy in Texas. Anti-Mental Health Psychiatry websites 3. Breegijin.com. Mindfreedom.org. Mindfreedom.org/resources. Justiceforsandra.blogspot.com, detention in mental health facilities. Homeworker-sex-bats.com/health/anti-psychotic-drugs-2.htm. CCHR.org, Citizens Commission on Human Rights. cchr.org.au/fraud.php?ID=59, Citizens Commission on Human Rights Australia, Mental Health Fraud. cchr.org/spiraling/eng, Database on crime by mental health professionals, see which mental health professionals were convicted of crimes. FierceHealthcare.com, Healthcare Fraud News. i2i.org/main/article.php?article_ID=295, is mental health treatment a fraud? int.freedommag.org/page02.htm, Scientologists are anti-psychiatry. mentalhealthabuse.org. beforeyouttakethatpill.com. contextualpsychology.org/system/files/kupfer, 2002.pdf, a research agenda for DSM. motherboard.vice.com/heres-how-the-guy-who-wrote-the-on-sex-talks-about-sex, sex disorders. ncbi.nlm.nih.gov/pmc/article/pmc 2802599, DSM revision surrounded by controversy. psychologytoday.com/blog/feeling-relating-existing/2012004, feeling, relating, existing. psychweb.com, funny, good anti-psychobabble stuff. springernature.com/us, Scientific American. ted.com/talk/john_ranson_strange_answers_to_the_psychopath_test. tumblr.com/tagged/dsm-4-tr. National Empowerment Center. 20, Ballard Road. Lawrence, Massachusetts, 01843-1018. 800 power to you. New Directions in Psychology. epub 89. Somerville, Massachusetts, 02144. 617-623-9804. Network of mental health workers and citizens which challenge the psychiatric establishment and sponsor workshops, self-help groups, etc. Open Court Pub. epub 599. Peru, Illinois, 61354. 800-435-6850. Fax, 800-417-5091. Book Madness, Heresy, and the Rumor of Angels, The Revolt Against the Mental Health System by Seth Farber. Stop Abuse by Counselors. epub 68292. Seattle, Washington, 98168. 206-243-2723. Support group for people damaged by mental health counselors. Anti-psychiatry organizations at web.archive.org/web/20060603021552/www.google.org/top/society/issues/health/mental_health/anti-psychiatry_organizations. Mindfreedom.org. Voice of the movement against human rights violations in the psychiatric system. Features survivors' tales and news about issues and trends. Anti-Psychiatry.org. Nonprofit volunteer organization of people who feel they have been harmed by psychiatry. StopShrinks.org. A satirical look at abuses in the mental health industry and irresponsible psychiatrists. WildestColds.com. A resource site for parents, and a challenge to the biomedical mental health industry. Beverly.com. Articles and other links pertaining to this anti-psychiatric medication advocate, author, and spokesperson. WellMindMinnesota.org. offering an alternative resources and views of mental health and illness and a critique of drug therapy and psychiatric treatment. Citizens Commission on Human Rights Mental Health Abuse. mental-health-abuse.org. welcomeworld.org. Life Education Center for Healing and Serving Others as Ourselves, the alternative to the verbal and physical abuse of psychiatry. psychiatryusa.org. Speaks out against fabricating disease labels, the pushing of psychiatric drugs, and shock therapy. Site also links to sales of alternative products for ADHD treatment. Psychbusters.net. Articles on psychiatric fraud. Topics include Ritalin, Prozac, ADHD, ECT. mentalhealth.faithweb.com. An index to sites that explore abuses in the mental health field, including crimes committed by psychiatrists against their patients, electroshock therapy, involuntary commitment, abuse of psychotropic drugs and Ritalin. Chapter 4. A Canada Anti-Psychiatry Guide. Canadian Mental Health Critic Info. Apple. A Post-Psychiatric Leisure Experience. 211 Bronson Avenue, Ottawa, on. 613-238-1209. appledaropin.com. Psychiatric Survivors of Ottawa. 211 Bronson Avenue, number 303. Ottawa, on. 613-567-4379. psychiatricsurvivors.org. Psychiatric Medication Awareness Group. 100 Viaduct Avenue West, Victoria, BC. psychmedaware.org. Psychiatric Survivors Network of Elgin. 499 Talbot Street, St. Thomas, on. 519-631-1580. psne.ca. Mental Health Rights Coalition. 370 Main Street East, Hamilton, on. 905-545-2525. mentalhealthrights.ca. Canadian Mental Health Rights. mhpa.ab.ca, Alberta Mental Health Patient Advocate. sse.gov.on.ca/moltc/ppao/n/default.aspx. Mental Health and Human Rights. yourlegalrights.on.ca/health-and-disability/mental-health. Mental Health Rights Coalition. 370 Main Street East, Hamilton, on. 905-545-2525. mentalhealthrights.ca. Chapter 5. Society Mental Health Issue Websites at dmoz-odp.org/society/issues/health/mental_health. Mental Health Issue Websites. Subcategories. Anti-Psychiatry Organizations. ECT, Electroconvulsive Therapy. Involuntary Commitment. Legal Information. Medication. Memory Controversies. Personal Stories. Policy and Advocacy. Psychosurgery. Use of Restraints. AlternativeMentalHealth.com, AlternativeMentalHealth.com. AlternativeMentalHealth.com is a guide to alternative mental health, non-psychiatric, health-oriented. The site features a directory of practitioners, organizations, and experts from several countries. Anistal.com/thesis, Till Death Do Us Part, The Marriage of Art and Madness. Graduate thesis exploring the relationship between art and madness. Antipsychiatry.wikifoundry.com, Psychiatry Anti-Psychiatry Revisited. David Cooper's Discoveries in Psychodynamics of Schizophrenia and His Criticisms of Psychiatry. Brigigen.com, Center for the Study of Psychiatry and Psychology. Peter R. Bregan, M.D. Founded the International Center for the Study of Psychiatry and Psychology, ICSP, as a non-profit research and educational network 25 years ago and warns the media and the public about the potential dangers of drugs, electroshock, psychosurgery, and the biological theories of psychiatry. bu.edu/sarpsych, Center for Psychiatric Rehabilitation. A research, training, and service organization dedicated to improving the lives of people who have psychiatric disabilities. Mind-body.info, Mind, Body, and Society. Inquiry and research on the interplay between mind, body, and society. Includes sections on consciousness, psychosis, imagination, health, sickness, and death. NARPA.org, National Association for Rights Protection and Advocacy. An organization opposed to psychiatric abuses and involuntary treatment. Psychcrime.org, Report Psychiatric Abuse. Citizens Commission on Human Rights, CCHR, Database of Psychiatric Crimes, Form for Reporting Psychiatric Abuses, Video Presentation. Sealander.com/Garel.html, the first GRRRL. She spent years championing the rights of the disabled and the forgotten. When she became the underdog in her own life, she struggled just as fiercely to save herself. Skeptic.com/refuge/crazy.html, Crazy Therapies. Review of a guide to recognizing an incompetent, immoral, or quack therapist. Support4hope.com/support_groups.html, support groups chats for mental health. Information and communities for depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and other mental conditions. Includes news, editorials, and chat. ZAS.com, the Thomas S. ZAS Cyber Center for Liberty and Responsibility. Advances the debate about Thomas S. ZAS's basic ideas and their practical applications. Voicelessness.com/essay.html, essays on psychology and life. Essays on therapy, failed therapy, managed care, the Columbine High School massacre, Bill Clinton's attention deficit disorder and other mental health topics. web.ca/T. As for the Sky, Falling. A book that combines a first-person account of life on a psychiatric ward with a critical analysis of the psychiatric system. WhiteWRADH.com, White Wreath Association Incorporated, Action Against Suicide. A voluntary organization that advocates changes to the mental health system and also raises funds to build care centers. Anti-psychiatry organizations. Antidepressantsfacts.com/index.html, Antidepressants Facts, Side Effects and Safety. Antidepressants Facts, Side Effects and Safety. SSRI Antidepressants Research, Articles, Studies, Personal Experiences, Views of Doctors. Anti-Psychiatry.org, the Anti-Psychiatry Coalition. Nonprofit volunteer organization of people who feel they have been harmed by psychiatry. ICSBP.org, International Center for the Study of Psychiatry and Psychology. Covers the potential dangers of drugs, electroshock, psychosurgery, biological theories of psychiatry and treating social, interpersonal, and personal problems as though they were medical diseases. Mentalhealth.faithweb.com, Mental Health Faith Web. An index to sites that explore abuses in the mental health field, including crimes committed by psychiatrists against their patients, electroshock therapy, involuntary commitment, abuse of psychotropic drugs and Ritalin. Mindfreedom.org, Support Coalition International's Mindfreedom.org. Voice of the movement against human rights violations in the psychiatric system. Features survivors' tales and news about issues and trends. Psychbusters.net, Psychbusters Network. Articles on psychiatric fraud. Topics include Ritalin, Prozac, AD, ADHD, ECT. PsychSearch.net, PsychSearch.net, Psych Abuses. This website is dedicated to tracking and reporting on criminal violations committed by psychotherapists in the state of Florida. There is an unfortunate trail of broken lives who have been damaged due to psychiatric and psychotherapist abuse. The mission of this site is to expose these abuses and assist our local and state governments in informing the public of those psychotherapists who break the law. Socialworkabuse.com, a child's guide to social work. The emphasis of SWARE, Social Work Abuse Resistance Education, warns people about coercion and psychoactive drugs. The picture book may be read online or downloaded in PDF format. StopShrinks.org, Stop Shrinks. A satirical look at abuses in the mental health industry and irresponsible psychiatrists. WildestColts.com, the wildest colts make the best horses. A resource site for parents, and a challenge to the biomedical mental health industry. Personal stories of abuse from mental health professionals. darkland.i8.com, Darkland, Diary of Insanity. Andrew R. Miller provides a guide to the darker, mental side of entertainment, music, and art. Includes information about asylums, including haunted ones. Prozac.blogspot.com